All right, emergency podcast. Mason Choate and Andrew Hutchinson from HawgBeat.com, along with you. Eric Musselman had shoulder surgery this morning. He's expected to miss at least the next two games. That includes LSU and South Carolina. So Hutch, just general reaction. I mean, it's a big deal. You're missing your head coach. Keith Smart will step in for Musselman. But like I said, big deal. What do you think?
Honestly, I'm happy for Eric Musselman because you could just tell in press conferences with the media, talking to us after the game. Even if you watch him, just his mannerisms in the game, he just does not seem himself. It seems like he's been on a lot of pain. That left shoulder has been really hurting him ever since. I think it was Trey Wade that landed on him in a practice back in early December, and I think it's been about 6 weeks he's been dealing with it, and they had hoped it would get better through rehab, and it just hasn't happened. And you could tell he's had a hard time sleeping, and just looking at him, you could tell he's hurting. So I'm happy for him just from a physical standpoint that he's going to have the surgery because he'll kind of get back on the path to recovery. But yeah, it is a big deal because you're going to be without your head coach. This is something that Arkansas has dealt with in the past. I think it was last year. Musselman had to miss a game because of COVID protocols, and they didn't seem to skip a beat. Of course, that was a non-conference game, if I remember correctly, and this is number 12 LSU coming up. So big difference from that perspective. But honestly, I don't know how big of a difference it would make. He's still going to probably be giving his feedback, or he has probably given feedback, all last night before having the surgery, as far as scouting reports and things like that are concerned. He'll probably be out of commission, I would guess, for a couple of days after the surgery, at least, just as he, gets all the pain medicine and stuff like that. And plus, Keith Smart, the interim head coach, is more than qualified. I mean, the guy's been a head coach for multiple NBA teams in the past, so he knows basketball, and Arkansas is going to be in good hands, even with Eric Musselman currently sidelined.
On a positive note, the doctor who did the surgery, Dr. Wesley Cox, I believe he's from UAMS Health. He did say that Coach Mutz is expected to do very well, make a full recovery. So he said they repaired the tears in his shoulder. So good. That's good news that he's going to make full recovery. The bad news is you don't know how long it's going to take. We had a couple people on our message board over at HawgBeat.com who said they've had almost the same surgery. I mean, some of them, I think I read it was like 3 months or something like that. Now, I mean, it's probably a different situation for every person, and I'm no medical expert. Eric Musselman, a healthy man, and I'm sure, he probably wants to get out there as soon as possible, and I'm sure he will. But Hutch, I want to ask you just from a team perspective, do you think that how do you think this is going to affect the players? Because do you think that they're going to want to play more for their coach that is out, help him out, give him something to root for? Do you think this is going to affect them mentally and maybe in turn on the court?
You hope that it results in kind of a rallying cry for the guys. I mean, this is their head coach, a guy that they all, seemingly really like, and there's a reason they came to Arkansas. All these guys are his players, so you'd like to think that they're going to be able to kind of rally behind them. Is that going to be enough whenever you're playing such a really good team like LSU? I think they're ranked number 12 in the country right now. I'm not sure. But you'd like to think that hopefully the momentum they kind of got from the blowout win over Missouri earlier this week will kind of carry over as well. I think that win over Missouri, it looks even bigger now, because if you had somehow lost to Missouri, and then your basketball coach goes and has surgery and is going to miss a couple of games, that would probably have a negative effect on you. But I think they maybe kind of got some confidence, and it can be one of those things where they can use that confidence for these next couple of games while they're without Eric Musselman to kind of get them through.
Any thoughts on just Keith Smart? And we know his background as a head coach in the NBA, but as far as college goes, he doesn't have any head coaching experience there. But you kind of mentioned earlier you're confident in him. Just I know there's not many expectations that we could think of, but do you have any expectations from Keith Smart moving forward for the Hogs?
Yeah, there's always this debate, in football and basketball, how do professional coaches adjust to the college game and vice versa. And I really don't think that that's too big of a deal right now, because usually when you're talking about that, it's like, well, how does a professional coach deal with, the recruiting side of things? We've seen Alabama hired, I think his name is Avery Johnson. Is that right? A few years back, he was a former NBA head coach and just didn't work out well. There's a recruiting aspect to it, all that kind of stuff. But Keith Smart doesn't have to worry about that. Right now, Keith Smart is just worried about basketball. And we know he knows basketball. I mean, he played it at a high level, he's coached it at a high level. So I really fully expect things to just kind of continue running smoothly. But again, we don't really know that until they take the court, and we'll see if they can, if nothing else, at least be competitive against LSU. And then they've got a really winnable stretch coming up after that. I mean, you mentioned the South Carolina game that Eric Musselman is expected to miss, but then after that, you've got Texas A&M at home, at Ole Miss. Those are very winnable games for Arkansas, and you just kind of need Keith Smart to kind of steer the ship and make sure it doesn't run off course like it did there for a little bit of a stretch before the Missouri game.
Smart is a guy who played under Eric Musselman at one point, and so I feel like he knows Musselman's system. He probably knows what to expect, and also you have to be confident in the guy's ability to coach a basketball team. So I think this was a big hire in the offseason if you look at it now, because if Musselman goes down like he did, then you can bring in Keith Smart. So it's kind of like with the football team. If you have your starting quarterback go down, you need to have someone as the backup who is serviceable. And I would say that Keith Smart is very serviceable.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the experience as a head coach. He's been the guy that leads the huddle in timeouts. He's a guy that leads practices or has led them in the past. And I mean, even the other assistants. I mean, Clay Mosier is a guy you talk about knowing Eric Musselman. He's worked with Eric Musselman for for many years. I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, it's been a lot. And then Gus Argenal has worked with Eric Musselman in the past at Nevada. Plus, he's been a head coach at the college level. I think it was a Division II level, but still a guy that has head coaching experience. So these are guys that they may not be like super high profile assistant coaches, but they know what they're doing, and I personally think that they're going to be able to kind of just keep things on track, not do anything crazy. But then again, this basketball team, we're not 100% sure they found their identity yet. We think that they're on the right track considering what they did to Missouri. But again, we'll see what they can do against a team that's a lot better than the Missouri Tigers.
Yeah, like you said, hopefully that this team is able to rally together and play for their coach who has just had surgery. But like we said, Eric Musselman, shoulder surgery, expected to make a full recovery. Keith Smart will step in for him. Hogs to take on LSU this weekend in Baton Rouge. But that's going to wrap it up for us here at HawgBeat. Thank you guys for listening.